Today, case 19 in the Book of Equanimity. Uman's Mount Sumeru. Preface to the Assembly. I always admire the novel activity of Uman. All his life he pulled out nails and wedges for people. Why did he sometimes open up his gate and set out a tray of glue, or dig a pitfall in the middle of the road? Try to examine it and see. Main case. Attention. A monk asked Uman, when not producing a single thought, is there any fault or not? Uman said, Mount Sumeru. Appreciatory verse. Not raising a single thought. Mount Sumeru. Uman's Dharma. Giving is not meant to be stingy. Come to accept it, and you'll get a double handful. Go doubt it, and you'll never scale that 1,000-yard height. Blue oceans vast, white clouds at ease. Between them, there's not even a hair's breadth. A false cock's crow never deceives one. Be unsure, and you'll not pass through the barrier. In Sanskrit, Sumeru means wonderfully high. It is the mountain that is the center of all Buddhist cosmology. It is the dwelling place of the gods. It's surrounded by seas and continents. And under it lies the realms of hell. And above it is the realm of heavens. The monk asked, when not producing a single thought, is there any fault? Mount Sumeru goes on. Solid mountain. Mount Sumeru is such a mountain. It is solid. It's the center of the universe. He's always pulling out nails. And sometimes he puts out a bowl of glue. Uman was a very effective Zen master. Always had a pithy response. Spontaneous. Unsettling. Uman is unmoved by praise or criticism. He knows who he is, and nothing can disturb this mind. No criticism, no praise. This solid mountain stands as it is. Wonderfully high. In Imperial China and feudal Japan, it was as simple as climbing a mountain. You were born into a culture, into a religious tradition. You were born Buddhist. So you found a teacher and you submitted to the teacher. You submitted. You bowed to the teacher and did whatever he told you to. And you cultivated your discipline. You learned to curb your desires. You learned to control your body. You had the discipline. And then you began to explore the subtle realms. You began to climb the mountain. You began to explore the many different forms that were so carefully articulated, the images of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so carefully articulating the different states of mind in the subtle realm. And with the guidance of the teacher, you slowly climbed the mountain and became one with all states. And along the way, you encountered demons, and you battled the demons. In our modern and postmodern world, things are not so simple. There is no mountain that rises above the plane of our imperial culture. Our culture is not imperial. Our culture is modern. It has cut down the mountain with the power of reason and science. The path we must take to climb this mountain is a different path. We must climb through the amber traditional beliefs. We must climb through the scientific rejection of the traditional beliefs. We must climb through the postmodern flatland, where they're desperately cutting out all the unnatural hierarchies, the man-made hierarchies. And we must reconnect with the emotions that we have disowned along the way. And the subpersonalities are our demons, the subpersonalities that have grown around those disowned emotions, the subpersonalities that have a life of their own. We must do our inner work. This Mount Sumeru, this undisturbable mind, must be undisturbed by criticism or praise. It must be undisturbed by disowned emotions and shadows. It must be undisturbed by beliefs and false selves. It must be completely liberated from all attachments. Your angst is your liberation. The most natural thing in the world to do is to avoid our pain and suffering, to turn away, to believe that we've gone beyond it, believe that we've outgrown it. And yet, in this postmodern age, this is the function of this integral sangha, to help us see where we are hooked, where we are still at war, and that war is spreading out into the world. How many Zen masters have fallen to an attachment to sexuality? That may be perfectly acceptable in a culture, an imperial culture. It is not acceptable in this culture. It is a problem. It distracts. It distracts from the Dharma. In this culture, that shadow must be faced. must be undisturbed by our shame or our anger or our tendency to turn away and dissociate. The emotional koan in this complex culture, with these complex minds and personalities, the emotional koan in the context of a sangha that is committed to waking up and growing up. When you bow down to the Buddha, what you're doing is becoming one with Mount Sumeru. You're bowing down to this Buddha nature that is within you, within all things. You're lifting this Buddha nature above your personal self, your relative self. You're lifting up your true self. Undisturbed by any disowned emotions or subpersonalities or any false beliefs or false selves. The relative self, truly authentic, completely whole, leaving out nothing. And the absolute mind, this awakened mind, this mind that's embodied in this body, that is arguing with nothing, which has explored every contraction until there's freedom. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The Dharma must evolve as our relative selves evolve. The teachings must evolve as the cultures evolve. The ultimate mind is the same. Vast, empty, silent awareness. The Dharma, the Sangha, must change. The Dharma must adapt and evolve to the culture. Hakuin, he was minding his own business when a young woman and her parents came up. And the young woman pointed at Hakuin and she said, "It's him." And the father came up, completely irate, holding a baby. And he said, "How could you? How could you? How could you have sex with my daughter? Here's the result of your indiscretion." And he handed Hakuin the baby. Hakuin looked at him. He said, the father said, "This is your baby." Hakuin said, "Is that so?" And he took the baby. And so as he went on his rounds with the begging bowl, he took the baby so that he could get milk to feed the baby. And he cared for the baby for a couple years. And finally, the young woman, in very deep remorse, admitted to her parents that it was really the butcher's son. It was his child. Right? So the parents, horribly embarrassed, went to Hakuin to beg his forgiveness. And they said, "I'm so sorry. We know the truth now." And Hakuin looked and said, "Is that so?" And he handed them the baby. No attachment. No, this mind cannot be stirred by criticism, by pain, by praise. Hakuin indeed was Mount Sumeru, solid, undisturbable. So we all, especially in this culture, we need to have confidence. We need to be confident in ourselves. But true confidence, like true compassion, is not idiot compassion, is not idiot confidence. It's not feeling good about ourselves. It's Mount Sumeru, attaining this undisturbable mind. Where will you look for confidence?